Hey everyone, and welcome to another video. Now this is the Who Are You manga tag by RxManga, but Whimsical Pictures tagged me in this quite a while ago. Like normal, I apologize it's taken me so long. But there are 10 questions here, 9 which I have proper answers to, 1 I'm sort of just half-assing on, but I hope you guys enjoy and I'll just get straight to it. So question 1 is favorite new series less than 5 volumes out currently. There are a lot of new series that I really enjoy but are already over 5 volumes, so of course they are discounted for this particular question. So my choice would have to be Otherworld Barbara by Moto Hagio, a sort of horror science fiction thriller series. Very classic Hagio. If you have not read this series and you're interested in her work, pick it up from Fantagraphics. It's wonderful. This particular volume is a 2-in-1, so it's a lot thicker than, you know, your standard. But the series itself is only 4 volumes long, so we are getting the second half in August, I believe. And I'm really looking forward to actually finishing this one. It's very interesting. She's very good with her speculative fiction stuff, and I look forward to reading more. Question 2 is favorite spines. I have 2 answers to this question. The first being the Viz Bigs of Vagabond by Takehiko Inoue. As most people know, there is a continuous image on these larger re-releases of this series that I absolutely adore. They're really wonderful. A nice little addition to this series that is so popular, and Inoue's art is marvelous. So it is really a great thing. All the other Viz Bigs that I've seen, I don't own any of them, but they just have pretty typical spine art, but having the continuous image is a really nice touch for them. The other series I would say is A Bride Story by Kaoru Mori, which spines look like this. They always have character art, and if you know me, you know that I love Mori's character artwork. And seeing them all in a row, there's just so many wonderful pieces on these spines. I also really like the font, the typography that they use for this particular series. Yen has done a really good job on this release. Question number 3 is least favorite still having hope for. So a series that is probably not my favorite, but I still trust that it will get better in the future. If you know me and know my sort of stance on collecting, you know that I don't really buy things that I am not enjoying. I tend to prefer to just support the series that I absolutely adore. That being said, I would have to probably say Blade of the Immortal. Not because there's anything particularly wrong with this series. It's not bad. There's nothing that it could be doing better. But for the type of story it is, it always takes me a little bit longer to get invested into it. And with the reputation that this series has, I have, like, no problems knowing that, like, I know that I will enjoy it, so I'm not, like, really too fussed about buying it currently with my sort of enjoyment but not adoration for it, because it's a longer series. It's 30 volumes, so 10 of these 3-in-1s. So I do definitely have faith that it will get better. But yeah, I mean, that's probably not the thing people really is the popular opinion for this series, but yeah, at this point early on, and this sort of series, like this sort of type of story, is always one that takes me a little bit longer to get into. It was the same with Vagabond. It's the same with a lot of sort of wandering samurai stories. For as good as they are, it takes more than a good sword fights to get me invested into a series. So yes, I'm looking forward to more of it, but like it's not a super high priority at most. Question number 4 is the hardest series to find that I want. There's 2 answers to this, and the first being Banana Fish. If you have no familiarity with that series, it's sort of a 80s New York gang series. A lot of quite prominent YouTubers talk about it. It's 19 volumes long and just very hard to find. It was initially being released by Viz in flipped form in the early 90s, and then in the early 2000s it got re-released. The first 6 volumes got re-released in the standard form, which is the Japanese style now, and then continued until its completion. It's a little bit infamous for its ending, just because of how a certain character was modeled after a real life person, and then how that real life person's life went on. The character mirrored that, and then it sort of left a little bit of a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths after the whole story. But that being said, it's one of the lost shoujo stories that we don't really see anymore. It's been out of print for probably close to 15 years now. It's very hard to find. There are still copies of certain volumes quite easy. You can get new, but so many of them are so expensive. The best way is probably buying a entire series lot, but I don't have the money for that, unfortunately. I'm hoping that it gets a re-release someday, because I would love to own it. The second answer to that would be Moonchild, which is again a very hard series to find. Not as hard as Banana Fish, I don't believe, and it's a lot shorter. It's like half the length or a third of the length of Banana Fish, but just another one that is just, it has such a wonderful reputation and is the sort of thing I know I would adore, but it's so hard to find copies for. I really do hope that I manage to find some someday, because I hate missing out. I really do. Those sorts of, I don't know. I wish those sorts of series were more popular and then would stay in print for longer, but it might just be a lost cause at this point. Question 5 is favorite publishers or publisher. If we're talking about actual quality of story or series that are being released and that fit within my very unique taste, that would definitely be Kodansha and Vertical. I know people have a lot of problems with Kodansha, although I've never truly agreed with any of them. But for the type of story and the variety that Kodansha provides to us as consumers is marvelous. They're probably my favorite in terms of josei series being released currently. They definitely, in my opinion, have cornered the market for stuff that wouldn't necessarily people would expect broad appeal from, but definitely have niche fan bases, and due to that are I think doing very well for them. Things like Princess Jellyfish, Welcome to the Ballroom, even things like Noragami, which I think is more standard, like everybody enjoys it. It was sort of a risk at the time for them to license it. And of course, the new and wonderful Descending Stories, which just came out last month, which, five years ago we would have never seen a license for, just because it is so niche, as well as their digital library, things like Chihaya Furu and Shihoku no Altair, which is a shonen series that is sort of an interesting premise. We're seeing so much from them, and I don't think enough people give them credit, just because, I don't know. Vertical as well, wonderful variety of stories. I hear people complain about their recent licenses. I can't remember anything off the top of my head. But for things like Mysterious Girlfriend X, Devil's Line, Ajin, those are ones that I think have a larger appeal. But even things like What Did You Eat Yesterday and their one-shot series, they really do have a lot of quality titles behind them that, they're a smaller publisher, so I don't necessarily think people remember them all that often. They've definitely grown in popularity over the last year or so, but it says something that the quality of their actual series that they're licensing continues to be at a very high level. It really does say a lot about them as a company and as a licensor. They definitely can find the niches that they fit into and market them well to those core people. Drawn and Quarterly is another one for very niche fans, and even other. Seven Seas has also improved a lot. I'm so glad they've been putting more variety into their catalog, because it definitely needed it. There was a long time which Seven Seas had 0 things I was interested in. Now there's quite a bit that Seven Seas has licensed that I am quite excited for, actually. So all the publishers do have their goods and bads, but I would say the ratio of my favorites per publisher, it would definitely be Kodansha and Vertical. They just keep doing great things. Question 6 is a favorite series that needs an anime or a better anime adaptation. And I believe there was a qualifier that you couldn't pick Berserk, which is good because that wasn't the one I even thought about. But my choice is Genkaku Picasso, a series I've talked about before. And I think that it would be quite easy to adapt this into anime. It sort of arcs very organically. There's a lot of actual pretty linear development over it, but the chapters themselves within the manga are very episodic, so I think it could actually really work well as an anime, and it would only need 12 or 13 episodes to do so. Yeah, I mean, there are some, I don't remember exactly how long this series is. It might be 20 chapters or so, which means that maybe some particular chapters were skipped over, but you wouldn't necessarily lose anything from them being omitted. But if you wanted to push it to 20 or 24 episodes, it would be perfectly fine, because they are quite long chapters, especially the 3rd volume stuff. But yeah, it's sort of a interesting supernatural premise with a bit of a twist, a bit of a darker twist. But is very hopeful, and yeah, I'd be interested in seeing an anime adaptation of it, because I don't know, it seems like it should be more popular, especially considering that it's written and illustrated by Furuya, who has quite a hardcore following. This series always seems overlooked. I don't know, but an anime adaptation I would be very happy with this series. I think good things could be done. Question 7 is favorite manga world. So I guess series like settings, fantastical settings within manga. And my is maybe a little bit typical, but my answer to this would be the world of Fullmetal Alchemist. I really, really like the appeal of like alchemy, which is basically science-based magic. It's close enough to our own world that you can live as a normal person without any issue, but just the possibilities that alchemy could bring to society, and if it wasn't abused like in the series, it's a very interesting thing. Like, it's really very there's so many possibilities with it. You can really speculate a lot on the impact it has on the society as a whole, and that's a huge part of the series itself. So yeah, the idea that humanity could have this understanding of the world on a chemical level and then physically change it through just like this magical sort of reaction is pretty interesting. Like, it's very, like I said, it's very, very close to our own world. It fits very well into our own understanding of the world, chemistry, biology, physics, that sort of thing. But it does have that spark, like that twist and that spark of magic to it that isn't necessarily, like, that's not what we have in reality. So yeah, I don't know, maybe that's boring, but I really like the idea of the Fullmetal Alchemist world. Maybe without all the upcoming doom and end of the world stuff, but you know, not everything can be perfect, so yeah. Question 8 is favorite mangaka, and no Asano no Inoue, which again, it doesn't really apply because that was never going to be my choice anyway. But one that should be no surprise to anyone who's watched any of my videos, and that is Fumi Yoshinaga, the author of wonderful, wonderful ongoing series Oku, The Inner Chambers, and What Did You Eat Yesterday, but also artist of some of my favorite series, Antique Bakery, Flower of Life, Garden Dreamers, even her one-shot things like All My Darling Daughters and Not Love But Delicious Foods make me so happy. And her BL stuff as well. She's just marvelous at what she does. I am so, so, so happy whenever any of her stuff gets licensed. I own everything currently available of her work in English, and like I said, this shouldn't be a surprise. I talk about her all the time. Wonderful, wonderful writer. Mainly does seinen and josei stuff. But yeah, she's got great range, and every single one of her series has been wonderful to read. Not necessarily the most popular author, but again, one that I think there's quite a dedicated fan base to, and I think if people try her work, it's quite easy to become her fan. I don't know. But yes, Fumi Yoshinaga, which should surprise nobody, unless this is the very first of my videos you've seen, but I don't know why you would start here. Question 9 is my favorite genre, and again, maybe a little bit obvious, but it would definitely have to be sort of supernatural or Shinto-esque, yokai, that sort of story. Two very maybe obvious examples would be Natsume's Book of Friends and Mushishi, but even the older stuff like Kitaro and that sort of thing as well is inclusive. I just really, really, really like very heavily influenced Japanese stories. I find Shintoism very fascinating because it is so, like, the blend of Shintoism and Buddhism in Japan, it's very different from a lot of Western religion, obviously. But just how Japan really, Shintoism isn't necessarily very at the forefront of a lot of people's minds. They don't necessarily regard themselves as very religious, but they are very superstitious, and it's sort of ingrained into society and the culture as a whole. So I do hope to own more supernatural Shinto-esque series. There's a lot of anime that I really do adore with similar themes as well, which either don't have manga adaptations or their manga isn't available in English. Things like Mononoke and Zettai Shonen, which is a series I don't know if many people have heard of. But yes, it's something that I really do gravitate towards. If there's a sort of Shintai, supernatural, yokai story, especially from certain authors or studios or whatever, I definitely gravitate towards that. There are some that I don't enjoy, and I've never been a huge fan of like yokai romance stories a la Kami-sama Kiss and that sort of thing. Not to say that they're bad, that's not really what I mean when I'm talking about this genre. So yes, again, maybe a bit obvious, but yeah, that's my answer to that. And question 10 is your favorite beverage, of course, in reference to RxManga's favorite beverage, which should be obvious. But mine is I'm so boring. Like, honestly, the thing I drink the most, and I have pretty much constantly every day, is water. Like, I'm so boring. I never claim to be interesting, but I have coffee in the morning, black coffee with lemon zest and salt. If you haven't tried that, it's really good. I have water all the way through the day, and then I have chamomile tea a couple hours before I go to bed, and then I have water, glass of water by my bed. I really don't drink too much differently from that. I rarely, I haven't had soda in probably close to 5 years. I like a good Bloody Mary. I like a good gin and tonic, but I don't go out all too often. I don't drink that much alcohol, although I do like a good glass of red. But usually like, I don't want to say it's my favorite, but it's just what I always drink, and what I sort of default back to is water. Plain cold tap water. So yes, very, very boring, but like I said, I never claimed to be interesting. So those are all of my answers to those questions. Thank you for tagging me, Whimsical Pictures, and thank you for the interesting questions, RxManga. It was very, very interesting to think about the answers that I wanted to give. As for tagging other people, I'm not going to do that, just because I'm so late on this that it doesn't really matter. Everyone's probably already done it. If you haven't, feel free to. It's a pretty good tag, so it's one that's worthwhile. But as for a specific person, I don't know. If you want to, do it, but yeah, like I said, everyone's probably already done it, and have had probably much more interesting answers than mine. But thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next video, guys. Bye till then.